At 2 a.m., the highway should feel empty. Just darkness. Just wind. Just the occasional diesel engine groaning somewhere in the distance. But tonight, something different moves through the night. No roar. No vibration. Just a massive shadow gliding forward like a train with no tracks. Streetlights reflect off a body so long, so tall, so wide. It doesn't look like a truck. It looks like a building. Rolling. A driver in an old rig slows down beside it, squints through his window, and then his eyes widen. Because inside that truck, he sees a bed, lights, a small kitchen, storage cabinets, even a workspace, like a studio apartment on wheels. And the strangest part? It's silent. No smoke. No rattling metal. Just smooth motion. Like the future quietly overtaking the past. Voiceover. Calm and deliberate. What if trucking didn't have to mean exhaustion, noise, and sleepless nights? What if the road felt like home? What if the truck was the home? Cut to black. Then one name appears. Maxwell Chikumbutso. While the world focused on electric cars, while companies raced to build faster sedans and luxury SUVs, Maxwell was thinking about someone else entirely. The drivers. The ones who spend weeks away from family. Sleeping in cramped metal boxes. Eating cold food. Living out of plastic bags and tiny compartments. The invisible backbone of every economy. Truckers. He watched them closely. Rest stops packed with exhausted faces. Drivers stretching their backs beside noisy engines. Men and women trying to sleep while diesel fumes drift through cracked windows. And he kept asking himself one question. If we can build smart cities, why are truckers still living like it's 1975? So instead of designing smaller, he went bigger. Much bigger. Inside a quiet workshop, sketches started appearing. Not normal truck blueprints. These looked like architectural plans. Longer chassis, raised ceilings, expanded cabins, more square meters than some apartments. Engineers stared at the drawings like they were jokes. This can't be a sleeper cab. It's too big. It'll never work. Maxwell didn't argue. He just smiled slightly. Because every breakthrough sounds ridiculous at first. Weeks later, steel frames twice the size of standard rigs started taking shape. Reinforced axles. Heavy-duty suspension. Battery systems stacked like bricks under the floor. Not diesel tanks. Battery packs. Because if drivers were going to live inside these machines, they couldn't shake like earthquakes all night. Electric was the only answer. Silence was the luxury. And slowly, the first prototype stood upright. Tall. Wide. Almost intimidating. Workers stepped back just to take it in. It didn't look like a truck anymore. It looked like a moving apartment block. Inside, there was space to stand fully upright. No crouching. No squeezing sideways. A real mattress. A fold-out desk. Smart lighting. Climate control. Even a tiny cooking station. One engineer walked inside, closed the door, and just stood there. Quiet. No engine noise. No vibration. Just stillness. Like stepping into a hotel room. And that's when it hit everyone at the same time. This wasn't just a sleeper cab. This was dignity on wheels. Because for the first time, truck drivers wouldn't just survive the road. They could actually live on it. Outside, Maxwell watched the prototype roll forward for the very first time. Massive tires turning slowly. The sun reflecting across its endless side panels. People pulling out phones. Pointing. Whispering. Is that a bus? No, it's a truck. Why is it so big? And Maxwell quietly thought, they haven't even seen the inside yet. The doors open, and the first driver climbs in to test it, sits down, hands on the wheel, looks around the cabin like he's stepping into a small apartment, and under his breath he mutters, "No way." He presses the power button, and the entire giant machine wakes up without a sound, just a soft glow across the dashboard, and the truck begins to move, smooth, silent, almost floating, pulling out of the yard, heading toward the open highway, and none of them realize yet. There was no going back. The tires roll over the asphalt with a low, steady whisper. Not the violent shaking drivers are used to. Not the teeth-rattling roar of diesel. Just there. Wind. Motion. Inside the cabin, the driver waits for the usual chaos. The vibration. The noise. The constant hum that drills into your skull for hours. But it never comes. Instead, the steering wheel feels light, almost effortless, like guiding a boat across calm water. He checks the mirrors. The trailer behind him is massive, yet the truck pulls it like it weighs nothing. Instant torque. Electric. Smooth. He laughs under his breath. Not because it's funny, because it feels unreal.
Cut to the interior.
Soft LED strips glow along the ceiling. The suspension absorbs every crack in the road. The cabin barely trembles. A cup of coffee sits in the holder, and it doesn't even ripple. For drivers, that's magic. Hours pass. Normally by now his back would ache, his ears ringing, his patience thinning. But tonight, he feels strangely relaxed. He reaches behind the seat, pulls down the fold-out table, checks a route tablet mounted on the wall. It feels less like driving a truck, and more like working inside a moving office. And that was exactly Maxwell's point. Why should the people moving an entire nation's economy be the most uncomfortable people on the road? Why should luxury exist only for passengers, but never for drivers? Back at the workshop, more frames are being welded.
Bigger.
Better.
Cleaner.
What started as one prototype is becoming a line, then a fleet, then something that looks suspiciously like the beginning of an industry. Young technicians walk between the chassis with tablets, software updates, battery diagnostics, smart energy systems. These aren't old-school mechanics anymore. They're engineers, coders, designers. A new kind of workforce growing around one idea. Build locally. Build smarter. Build for your own people first. Maxwell walks past each unit quietly, running his hand along the metal like a craftsman checking wood grain. No speeches. No cameras. Just focus. Because he knows something most companies forget. Real revolutions don't start in boardrooms. They start with one uncomfortable truth. Truckers deserve better. Days later, the first convoy leaves the gates. 3 gigantic sleeper cabs.
Polished.
Towering. Moving together like elephants crossing open land. Traffic slows. People stare.
Phones come out.
What are those? They look like homes. They're trucks? No way. The sun hits the glass and chrome, and for a moment they look almost futuristic, like machines that accidentally time-traveled here from 2045. Inside one of them, the driver finishes his shift. Normally, he'd search for a motel, waste money, sleep in a noisy parking lot. But tonight, he simply parks, locks the doors, stands up fully inside the cabin, stretches, walks 3 steps to the back, turns on a warm overhead light. He heats food, sits at the small table, calls his family on video. His kids wave through the screen. And for the first time ever, he doesn't look exhausted. He looks comfortable, like he's at home. Because he is. The camera slowly pulls back outside the window. The massive sleeper cab glowing softly under the night sky.
Silent. Still.
Like a tiny apartment resting beside the highway. And across the country, more of them are moving. More drivers stepping inside. More lives quietly changing. What started as one crazy, oversized idea is beginning to reshape what trucking even means. Not just transport. Not just cargo. But living space. Human space. Respect. And somewhere in the distance, another new chassis rolls out of the factory, larger than the last, hinting that Maxwell isn't finished yet, that this first generation is only the beginning. Like a runway. Like an invitation. Like the future quietly whispering, go faster. Weeks later, something unexpected starts happening. Truck stops, the same dusty places that haven't changed in decades, begin to look different. Drivers gather around these giant sleeper cabs the way kids gather around a supercar. Phones out, hands on the glass, knocking lightly on the doors. "Can I see inside?" One driver steps down and opens the cabin. The small crowd freezes, because what they expected was a bigger bed, maybe extra storage. What they see instead makes them step back. There's standing space, real flooring, a mini fridge humming quietly, a screen displaying battery levels and route data, soft lighting like a hotel suite. One old trucker laughs, not mocking, just shocked. "I've been driving 20 years. He shakes his head. "And we used to sleep sitting up." Silence. Because everyone there knows that pain, back problems, neck strain,
Cold nights.
engines running just to keep warm, years shaved off your life just to deliver someone else's goods on time. And suddenly, this doesn't feel like luxury anymore. It feels overdue. Cut to Maxwell again, standing with engineers around a digital screen. But now the designs look even crazier. Double-deck sleeper concepts, extended-range battery packs, solar-assisted roofs, smart autopilot features for long, empty highways. One engineer asks quietly, if drivers can live inside, what if they never need hotels at all? Another adds, what if these become mobile offices or clinics or command centers? The truck is no longer just a truck. It's becoming a platform, a moving building, a blank canvas on wheels. And that's when the idea spreads beyond cargo. Emergency response units, mobile classrooms, electric touring buses, long-haul research labs, all built on the same giant sleeper chassis, the same foundation Maxwell started with. One smart decision: make it bigger, make it electric, make it human. On a test track outside the city, a second-generation model rolls forward. Smoother edges, wider windshield, even quieter motors. It doesn't lumber like an old truck. It glides, like it's floating just a few centimeters above the ground. The camera tracks beside it in slow motion, sun reflecting across the body, dust rising behind the wheels. It doesn't look industrial anymore. It looks elegant, almost futuristic, like something you'd expect in a sci-fi film. But it's real, built in a workshop that didn't even exist a few years ago. And that's what makes it powerful. Because this isn't some billion-dollar Silicon Valley lab. This isn't a global auto giant. This is local engineers, local materials, local problems, solved locally. A quiet revolution. No headlines. No giant marketing campaigns. Just results rolling down the highway every night. And somewhere deep into the evening, another driver pulls over after 12 straight hours on the road. He turns off the system. Total silence. Not the usual ringing in his ears.
Just calm. He stands.
Walks to the back. Lies down on a real mattress. Stares at the ceiling lights for a moment. Then smiles. Because tomorrow, he won't wake up sore.
He won't dread the next shift.
He won't feel like the road is slowly breaking him. For the first time, the road might actually feel livable. And as hundreds of these massive sleeper cabs begin spreading across highways, city to city, border to border, quietly replacing the old smoke-belching rigs, you start to realize something bigger is happening. This isn't just about comfort. It's about rewriting what work feels like, about proving drivers deserve technology too, about turning machines into spaces built for humans. And somewhere back at the factory, lights still on, welders still sparking, new steel frames still forming, even larger than before, hinting that Maxwell is already designing something the world hasn't even imagined yet, something that might make these giant sleeper cabs look small. And the blueprint on his desk slowly slides into view, lines stretching longer, cabins expanding wider, like someone sketching the future one line at a time. Outside the workshop, the night is quiet. But inside, sparks fly, metal bends, robotic cutters hum. The smell of fresh steel fills the air. Another chassis lowers onto the floor with a heavy, satisfying thud. Bigger again, longer again. Engineers walk around it in silence. One of them whistles softly. This isn't a sleeper cab anymore. It almost looks like a small train car. Maxwell studies it without saying much, because in his head, he's not building trucks. He's redesigning life on the road. And life on the road is changing faster than anyone expected. Across highways, these giant sleeper cabs start forming convoys. 5, 10, sometimes 20 at a time. All electric. All silent. Moving together like a migrating herd under the sunrise. No smoke trails. No engine roar. Just clean motion. Drivers in old diesel rigs stare as they get overtaken. Confused. Almost offended. How is something that big that quiet? But then something else happens. Fuel stops start losing customers. Because these trucks don't need diesel. Maintenance shops get fewer breakdowns. Because electric motors have fewer moving parts. And drivers? They stop quitting. For the first time in years, companies notice something strange. Turnover drops. Fewer back injuries. Fewer sick days. Fewer complaints. Because when you let people sleep properly, everything changes. Cut to inside one of the new-gen cabs during a storm. Rain hammering the outside. Thunder cracking overhead. In a normal truck, this would feel miserable. Cold. Claustrophobic.
Loud.
But here, soft insulation dampens the sound. Warm lights glow. The cabin feels like a tiny apartment. The driver makes tea.
Sits at the desk.
Writes a message home. The storm becomes background noise. Like he's safe inside a small house. Not stranded on a highway. And that's when it hits you. This isn't transportation anymore. It's architecture. Mobile architecture. Homes that move. Rooms that travel. Comfort engineered at 100 kilometers per hour. The camera pans across highways at dawn. One sleeper cab parked near mountains. Another near a desert road. Another beside a forest checkpoint. Tiny glowing rectangles scattered across the country. Like stars that decided to land on Earth. Each one with someone inside. Resting. Living. Breathing easier. And somewhere far away, in cities that haven't even seen these trucks yet, other manufacturers begin noticing. They start copying the idea. Bigger cabins. Electric drivetrains. Better interiors. But they're late. Because Maxwell already moved on. Back at the factory, the newest prototype stands under white lights. And this one makes the others look small. A higher roof. Panoramic front glass. Modular interior walls. Swappable battery rails underneath, like cartridges. It looks less like a truck, and more like a moving smart home. An engineer walks inside and laughs softly. You could live here full-time. Maxwell nods. Almost to himself. Exactly. Because the future he sees isn't drivers surviving the road. It's people choosing it. Choosing freedom. Choosing mobility. Choosing to work and live anywhere. And as the prototype systems boot up, lights flicker on one by one. Dashboard glowing. Motors humming softly. The massive vehicle inches forward, rolling out of the workshop. Toward the open gate. Toward the highway. Toward a world that still thinks a truck is just a metal box with an engine. Not realizing that right now, something enormous, silent, and revolutionary is about to merge onto the road and change trucking forever. This is only the beginning, because once people taste a better way to live, they never go back. The gate slides open slowly, metal scraping softly against metal. The massive prototype rolls forward into the early morning fog, headlights cutting clean beams through the mist. For a second, it doesn't even look real. It looks like something imagined. Something sketched in a concept art book. Too big, too smooth, too quiet. But the tires touch the road, and reality catches up. Inside the cabin, the screens come alive. Battery range, 1,200 kilometers. Cabin temperature, perfect. Energy flow, optimized. Solar roof panels trickle charging even under weak sunlight. This thing doesn't just drive. It thinks.
It adapts.
It manages itself. Almost like the truck is alive. The driver assigned to test it steps inside slowly. He removes his boots at the door without even realizing why. Because it doesn't feel like stepping into a vehicle. It feels like entering a room. Soft floor. Warm air. No grease. No rattling panels. Just calm. He sits down. Presses the start button. Nothing happens. No ignition. No explosion of noise. Just a gentle chime. Ready. That's it. The future announces itself with a whisper. The truck glides forward. Out of the industrial zone. Onto the main highway. Cars around it look tiny. Almost toy-like. Drivers slow down just to stare. Some wave. Some record. Some just shake their heads like they're watching something impossible. And inside, the driver activates cruise assist. The steering wheel adjusts slightly on its own. The truck holds its lane perfectly. AI calculating distance, terrain, wind resistance. Not replacing the driver, but helping him, like a silent co-pilot that never gets tired. He stands up while the system handles a straight stretch, walks to the back, pours water, looks out the side window at the world flying past. And he smiles. Because he's working. But it doesn't feel like work anymore. Cut to a montage. One sleeper cab crossing a desert highway at sunset. Another climbing mountain roads at dawn. Another parked near a village delivering supplies. Another acting as a mobile clinic. Doctors inside.
Lights on.
Equipment humming. Another converted into a mobile classroom. Kids sitting at fold-out desks. Learning. All built on the same platform. The same oversized sleeper concept everyone laughed at. The same idea they said was too big. Too unrealistic. Too ambitious. But that's always how the future looks at first. Too much. Until suddenly, it's normal. Weeks turn into months. Months turn into highways filled with these giants. And the sound of diesel slowly fades. Not overnight, but steadily. Like an old era quietly packing its bags. Fuel stations add charging bays. Rest stops redesign parking spaces to fit larger cabs. Entire logistics companies start ordering fleets. Because numbers don't lie. Less fuel cost. Less maintenance. Happier drivers. Longer routes. It's not just smarter. It's inevitable. Back at the factory, Maxwell watches a satellite map filled with tiny moving dots. Each at one of his sleeper trucks. Spreading. City to city. Country to country. Like veins carrying lifeblood across a continent. Someone asks him softly, "Did you expect it to grow this fast?" He doesn't answer immediately. Just keeps watching the screen. Then finally says, "When you build for people, growth builds itself." The camera pulls away slowly. Past the glowing monitors. Past the rows of new steel frames. Past workers assembling the next generation. Even larger. Even smarter. Even quieter. And outside, another convoy forms. Engines silent. Cabins glowing softly in the night. Rolling forward together like a moving city. Like homes on wheels chasing the horizon. Like the future refusing to slow down. And somewhere ahead, the horizon is still dark. Just a thin silver line separating Earth from sky. The kind of quiet you only get before sunrise. Before the world wakes up. Before the noise returns. A lone highway stretches forward forever. Empty.
Still.
And then, one by one, lights appear in the distance.
Soft. White.
Silent. Not the aggressive roar of engines. Not the choking smoke of diesel. Just smooth beams gliding closer.
10 of them. 20.
An entire convoy. Maxwell's giant sleeper cabs moving together like a futuristic caravan. Like a city that decided to travel. From above, they don't look like trucks anymore. They look like something else entirely. Like homes. Like hope. Like progress rolling forward. Inside one cabin, a driver finishes his tea. Another folds down a bed. Another video calls his daughter before sleep. Another stretches comfortably after a 1,000-kilometer run without pain. Small moments, quiet moments, but moments that never existed before. Because for decades, trucking meant sacrifice. Your sleep, your health, your family time. Now, it means something different. Comfort, control,
Dignity.
and that's the part nobody talks about in press releases. Not horsepower, not battery size, not speed.
But dignity.
The camera slowly drifts through one last cabin. Soft lighting, clean design, a jacket hanging neatly, boots by the door. It feels lived in,
Human.
not mechanical. And that's when you realize Maxwell didn't just redesign a vehicle. He redesigned an experience. He turned the harshest job on the road into something survivable, then comfortable, then almost desirable. Outside, the sun finally rises. Golden light washing over steel and glass. The convoy keeps moving forward. Long shadows stretching behind them. No noise. No drama. Just motion. Relentless. Inevitable. The old diesel era fading quietly in the background. The future taking its place without asking permission. And as the trucks disappear into the bright horizon, the voice returns one last time.
Calm. Certain.
Sometimes the biggest revolutions don't scream. They don't arrive with explosions or headlines. Sometimes they roll in silently and change everything. A final wide shot.